Welcome to the Adventure Travel Show podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks. I've got a special message for you today, but if you listened to last week's Active Travel Adventures podcast, it's the same message. So I don't want to waste your time. Go ahead and just hit pause, delete, and all that. But anyway, if you did not listen to that, I've got an interesting message for you. So let's get started. Around a decade ago, my sister found herself unexpectedly divorced. Resilient, she went back to school to get her master's degree in education so that she could more easily re-enter the workforce after a couple decades away raising her children. A few years into her new career as an elementary special needs teacher, she was burned out. She was frustrated and not leading the life that she wanted. She needed time to step back, reassess her life, catch her breath, and regroup. So she quit her job and decided to spend some time alone trying to figure out exactly how she wanted this next phase of her life to play out. Her adult son called it the summer of mom. In the fall, refreshed, fortunately before she ran out of money for this quote-unquote time-out experience, she landed an ideal job with the startup biotech department at a local university. This job fit her to a T, even though she had no idea that this would be a career she would even consider prior to her summer of mom. And for the last 10 years, she's proudly helped build this department from the ground up. She loves working with both the faculty and the students, and at last has found her calling for this current stage in her life. I'm turning 60 this year, in September. Every decade is a milestone I try to commemorate. For example, for my 50th, I signed up for a sprint triathlon, even though at the time I didn't run, bike, or even swim very well. This upcoming milestone birthday seems especially significant. I'm nearing retirement, so it's my time to really assess how am I going to play out this last, hopefully healthy segment of my life. These last 8 years have been a whirlwind. In 2012, my husband was diagnosed with throat cancer. In 2013, a good friend went missing while through hiking the Appalachian Trail and eventually perished. This was obviously a very traumatizing thing as we didn't even know what happened to her when she disappeared. Gratefully, a surveyor found her body and a diary a couple years later, so we now know she simply got lost when she stepped off the trail to go to the bathroom. Well, my husband Bill and I are reeling with dealing with the treatments and trying to do what we can with this cancer. We're also don't know what's happened to Jerry. And then the next year, 2014, I eventually lost my husband. And that's the time I ended up taking over the company books when I discovered our business was losing money. So I said, well, no problem. I'll just go get some work because my rentals is actually kind of a part-time job unless I have a vacancy. And then I discovered that I had apparently aged out of the workforce and nobody wanted to even give me an interview. So in a panic and thinking I found a solution, I registered to get certified to teach English as a second language, a field that's so starved for teachers. I knew I'd be able to find work once I graduated in about a year and a half. So the next year, 2015, I'm still in school full time, and my dad is declining with dementia. So I realized my place was near my parents, mom and dad. Dad's in his mid-90s, mom's nearing 90. So I realized it was time for me to get home or back to where they lived to help. So I sold my dream house that Bill and I had spent several years building into exactly what I wanted. And for Dad's last few months, I actually moved in with mom and dad so I could help out during that time. In the meantime, I'm commuting 150 miles each way back and forth so I can finish my certification in ESL, and gratefully finally graduated at the end of that year. And now that I'm back on Eastern North Carolina, I was like, I can't live with mom and dad. So I ended up buying a fixer-upper house, which is what I do, is I buy it and then I fix it the way that I like it to be. So I bought a sweet little 1962 ranch that needed complete updating because it still had all of the cabinets and the decor of the 60s. Good structural shape, but I could do without the pink tile in the bathrooms and the really dark dated cabinets and the flooring, just everything. It just needed a facelift. So I started tackling that along with trying to get the rentals back where they needed to be. The next year, 2016, I also was able to get my rentals back on track. So it turns out I didn't have to take that ESL job that I'd spent all that time training for. And I hope one day to use that as volunteer work or do something with it one time because I do enjoy doing it. But I like having that in my back pocket. But anyway, I digress. So 2016, things are starting to settle down in my life a little bit. And so the next year, I end up starting this podcast, the Active Travel Adventures podcast. And with that, because it ended up taking so much of my time, all my remodeling in the house came to a screeching halt. And so I've been living with my pink tiled bathroom for years and a couple other little piddly things. That last stretch always is the one that gets you because you're tired and whatever. So anyhow, I love doing the podcast. So I redirected all my efforts to that whenever I wasn't working on the rental business. And then even last year, I started the Adventure Travel Show podcast because I wanted to give people the tools, the knowledge, and the skills that they needed so they can go on these great adventures. I mean, that learning about adventure travel totally changed my life, and it's become my mission now to share this joy and this empowerment that you get by doing all these exciting adventures all over the place, whether it's locally near your own backyard or internationally. So like I said, 10 years ago when I was doing that triathlon, I didn't do any of that stuff. So it was a progression that started probably with that triathlon. And then when I decided I wanted to learn how to backpack, and then that opened up everything to me. And that was my trip to Nicaragua with my friend who did these exciting things every year. And I was like, I didn't know people like me could do that kind of thing. And so I always feel like if I didn't know that, other people may not know that. So that's the word that I want to share. However, this last few years, 8 years, I guess it's been, is exhausting. I feel like I have been on a hamster wheel, just zoom, 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 and I'm going to turn over the management of my rentals for a little bit. I really would like to be retired by the time I turn 60, and I've got all these things that I have mentally that I've wanted to get done before I hit that decade milestone. Of course, I love doing the podcasts, so that's a given. I'm going to keep doing that. Retirement, I mean, I don't want to be doing the rentals anymore. I'm done with it. Just stick a fork in it. I am finished with those. Hopefully, I believe I found somebody to take care of that for me, and so that's wonderful. That should be starting hopefully next month. Looking forward to that. But I am really, really, really tired. These last 8 years, I've had triumphs, I've had tragedy, I have just been spinning plates, and I am pooped. But one super positive thing came out of all those years. I felt time slipping away. I felt like I wasn't doing the things I always wanted to do before I got too old. So I decided to stop postponing travel until, here are some air quotes you can't see, someday. My parents always warned me that so many of their friends were going to travel when they retired, but then found their bodies unable to do the things that they'd always dreamt about doing. I wanted someday to be now, and I was going to figure out a way to make it happen. So once I got the rentals back on track, I said, it's time to start traveling. I'm not going to wait till the quote-unquote someday. I'm going to do it now. So I booked a trip to Iceland, and my sister Terry and I went over there to see if we could catch the Northern Lights, which we were lucky enough to see. And also when I got ticked off at one of my tenants, I said, to heck with it. So I booked, without having any idea how I was going to pull it off, 6 weeks in France for 9 months later. And I said, I'm going to figure it out one way or another. It's going to be really hard to leave the business for that long, but I have got to do this for me. And so I did. The next year is when I learned about adventure travel, which changed my life and how I travel from now on. It also gave me a calling and a mission. I felt so empowered by this previously unbeknownst to me manner of travel that I wanted to tell the whole world about it so everyone would know. And that's actually how the Active Travel Adventures podcast came to be. 2 years after starting ATA, I realized that it would also be helpful to teach folks about the how-tos of adventure travel so they'd build the confidence and skills necessary to get out there and give it a go. So a year ago, I started the Adventure Travel Show podcast. I love doing these podcasts, but it's extremely time-consuming, and it takes me about twice as much time as I'd figured it would. So I've been trying to juggle my travel, which I try to do in big chunks where I'll go away for a couple of months at a time. And then when I get back, I'll work like the dickens to get all the podcasts ready and all that so that I can go on my next trip. So it's been a whirlwind. So before my travels, I'll do all the podcasts ahead of time so they're already scheduled and ready to go, and I can actually relax and enjoy my trips when I'm gone. But when I get back, I've got to work like the dickens to get the podcast done again prior to the next trip, and I've got to play catch up on whatever was deferred or delayed in my rental business, which actually pays my bills. I don't stop, and I am pooped. I spend so much time doing the things that must be done now that I don't have time to sit back and think about my life and how I want to play out. This past winter, my mother started really declining, but at 94, well, it was certainly sad, and I grieve her passing in March. I guess it's kind of to be expected at that age. I had moved back to Eastern North Carolina after Bill died to be near my elderly parents as they needed me in their final years. And now Mom and Dad are both gone. So now if I turn over the management of the rentals to somebody else, I don't need to be anchored here anymore. And I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know where I want to go. I do know it's not here, but I don't know where it is. I know it's going to have mountains or at least some good hills and some good hiking trails. But that was part of my European journey that I was going to do this past spring, was to explore some great places in Europe that would be my temporary retirement home. Mom's sudden decline canceled my trip, and then COVID put a stop to the whole trip altogether. I was supposed to be in Italy for a travel conference at the beginning of March, but canceled when my mother started really failing. The travel restrictions anyway would have made it impossible for me to go. After my conference, I was supposed to walk the Portuguese El Camino, and then go check out those possible retirement areas. I figured I'd be gone like 2 months, maybe 2.5, and not knowing exactly when I'd come back, I just booked a one-way ticket. Instead, I'm in lockdown. During this time, I decided to finally finish remodeling my house, which had been put on hold when I started the podcast. Since I was planning on being gone for 2 months, I'd already recorded all the podcasts necessary all the way through the middle of May. So outside of some minor rental issues, I had a perfectly clear and open calendar. So staying home alone to work on my house gave me lots of time to think. I feel the clock ticking on my joints. My strength is going downhill, making the maintenance work I do at the rentals more difficult. I wonder how many more years I can carry a 30-pound backpack without my knees and my back rebelling. And with all the recent losses of my loved ones, I'm feeling my mortality. I figure I probably got hopefully 10 and maybe 15 solid adventure years ahead of me, and I want to get going. I have goals of getting all of my affairs in order, getting all my belongings purged down to the stuff I actually use and or care about. I only want to bring these things with me whenever I move to wherever it is I end up going. I want to take my Sophie girl, that's the 2011 camper van I bought in early March, on her maiden road trip. The lockdown was just starting right after I brought her home, so she's basically just sat in my driveway except for a once-a-week little run just to make sure her engine stays working fine. I want to do a cross-country U.S. trip without any set upfront plan. I want to see a bunch of our national and state parks as soon as they reopen. So, Kit, why are you rambling? The reason I'm rambling on and on is that I want you to know that, like my sister, I'm going to take a summer of Kit. I want to focus on getting these goals that I have accomplished before my 60th birthday. And to do so, I'm going to need to take a break from the podcast and my rentals. So I'd like to ask, if you're a new listener and haven't listened to some of the past episodes, this is a great time to download the back catalog so you can still go on all these great adventures with Active Travel Adventures and the Adventure Travel Show podcast this summer. And longtime listeners, I still find the experiences of my interview guests inspiring, so I still listen to my own back catalog every once in a while when I want to learn a little bit more about Patagonia or what it's like hiking in Japan. I'd like to ask to make sure that you're subscribed to both podcasts so you'll automatically get the new episodes when I start back up in a couple of months. And if you don't know how to do this, you can go to activetravelaadventures.com/subscribe or the adventuretravelshow podcast.com/subscribe, and then just click on your preferred podcast app. You can always also listen directly from the website. If I happen to be coming to your neck of the woods when I venture on my cross-country adventure, let me know if you want to get together for a cup of coffee, a drink, or maybe even a hike. Just email me at kit@activetravelaadventures.com. Tell me how to reach you, what town you live in, and if I'm anywhere near, I'm going to call, text, or email you to see if we can schedule a get-together. I plan to come back after the summer refreshed and also with the website revamped. I want my house revamped and ready for sale, my mind and body revamped, and I want to be raring to go. I've already got some wonderful interviews in the can that I just need to finish the production on, and I can't wait to share them with you. If you've got any suggestions for the show, whether it's locations or any other ideas, just let me know. Again, my email is kit@activetravelaadventures.com, or just hit the contact button on either the activetravelaadventures.com website or the adventuretravelshow podcast.com website. You'll find links in the show notes below. your email will come directly to my inbox. So with that, I hope you have a safe and wonderful summer, and I hope to hear from you. I am really looking forward to this break and this summer of Kit. I am super excited. I thank you so much for listening and also for your indulgence of letting me have the summer of Kit off. I really, really appreciate it. While I won't be doing the podcast, I will be doing the monthly newsletter, so I hope you've signed up for that and you'll find out what's going on and where Kit and Sophie are heading to next. Have a safe and great summer, and I look forward to being back with you again this fall. Until next time, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on!